And we'll try to do it right. And ask the good Lord to speak for me. I'm not a good speaker in public. I was raised in Dallas, Texas. My family was associated with Clint, some other people, I'm not going to too many names. I was sort of like a juvenile delinquent in Dallas, Texas. I had a choice. I was either going to go to federal prison or I was going to go in the United States Army. So I had a choice. So I joined the Texas 49th Army Division when I was 14 years old and became a tank driver. I used that excuse, or that situation, to use it as a springboard into the United States Army. I was at Fort Bliss, Texas when I was 16 years old. One day we're on the firing range and we're throwing hand grenades. And we had a DI right in front of us, and he takes a hand grenade and throws it in the hole where me and another guy are standing. I had two choices. I grabbed the grenade, I was going to throw it down range, and he was laughing. So I took the grenade, threw it back at him, and it was a dummy grenade. The smoke got up, and all the other DIs laughed at him. I made a fool of him. He took me to commander, said I tried to frag him, tried to kill him. I'm 16 years old. He said, son, he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 18. He said, son, he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 17. He said, son, how old are you? I said, I'm 60. He said, why did you try to kill your DI? And I said, well, he threw a hand grenade in the hole where me, and it was a black guy, Leroy Davis. And Leroy Davis was so scared he peed in his pants. I picked up the grenade, threw it back at him. I said, he tried to kill me first, and I wasn't going to give him a second chance. So, next thing I know, there's two CID guys standing there. So that was it. Next thing I know, I'm in Nags Head, North Carolina. I'm in a school called Illusionary Warfare Training. And the object of that was the beginning of my career with the CIA. At that time, I had no idea that I was even CIA. Didn't know what I was. I thought I was an Army. I was an enlisted person. I wasn't an upper echelon of CIA in those years, but let me tell you something about CIA. In those years, in the mid-50s, it was a great honor to be part of the CIA. It was a great honor to be able to serve the country. I was raised in the war years when loose lips sink ships. When the flying cadets, and we were programmed that we were going to go over to Germany, and we're going to bomb them, we're going to go to Japan, and we're going to clean house, and we're going to save the American Constitution. I was raised when if you drop the flag on the ground, some Marine's going to kick your ass, or some civilian. That's how we were raised. I can remember when Roosevelt died, and I went to Ben Mountain High School, and my dad, they were lowering the flag, and everybody stopped and got out of their cars, put their hands over their heart. And my dad told me then, I was 7 years old, he said, a great man just died. It was Roosevelt. And I always remember that because everybody stopped and they honored the flag and they honored the country. In 4 years, we won 2 wars, Germany and Japan. Our whole 7th Fleet was wiped out at Pearl Harbor. We built 21 ships in 19 days. 3 of them were aircraft carriers. And we did it with a pen and a pencil and a slide rule. Today, we can't even get, well, that's another story. So, for whatever reason. So, like I say, it was a great honor. Then, as time went on, Illusionary Warfare, I met Lee R. Goswell, Illusionary Warfare Training School. We talk about situations when people come up and say, well, you're a conspiracy this, and you say Lee Harvey Oswald, well, I know something about Kennedy's assassination, they're going to put you away. When Gary was talking about scared you, I was scared off for 16 years. I went into hiding. You remember that. I talked to them in Bernard Festival, and we got documents, 120 pages of documents. Went off with 1,560 pages of documents to FIA. I'm not a researcher. I'm a person that played it. I was there. So my story started back then. When I started getting out of all this, I started seeing infiltration. I started seeing the Texas Klan. We called it the Texas Klan before it was called the Texas Mafia. I saw LBJ, I saw assassin teams out of Texas, I saw Hoot Gibson stuffing ballot boxes, I saw the corruption of LBJ. I'm not going to go in any more than that to say who did what, how it come together, and so on like that. Back up here a little bit, I started running guns into Cuba. I had coffee in the mountains with Castro. Raul Castro gave me a fatigue hat, said, put this on your head to keep the bugs out of your hair. The reason I was there is we lost an engine on the takeoff and couldn't get off the runway after we delivered guns. Some of the guns came from Dallas, the Alpha 66, Tony Venciano, MiG 7, all these kind of things. These were operations. I was so proud to wear the boots, to wear the garb, and serve my country because I thought we were doing the right thing. In those years, I started seeing where there was a political influence that come into the CIA. The CIA became split. I watched military intelligence become splintered and split. I watched politics come in and take control of operations. I watched appointments of unqualified people in very strategic positions that interfered with our operations, got some of our men killed. We sent 85 men of our group to Southeast Asia right after being Min Phu. That was in 56, 57, 54, backwards. We watched these guys lose their lives. Nobody knew it. Nobody even knows it today. But we began to see political corruption weave into our operations. So we wasn't as patriotic after that as we were, because if we were patriotic, then they're going to put the finger on us, and they're going to put us down. So we can't talk. We can't talk about what you're planning. We can't talk about the illegal activities that are going on. We can't talk about the campaign contributions. And I'm talking about in the 60s. Same thing's going on today. The situation came up when a private U.S. Army private Eugene B. Dinkin, I don't know if anybody here, you researchers, some of you know about this guy. He was a cryptologist, very low level, same level I was, very low level. He came up with information that he deciphered through a contact of whatever how it happened. That there was going to be a hit made, or no, first they were recruiting assassins. They were recruiting somebody in Texas was recruiting assassins. The old Algerian from the old OSS and the old OAS, I think it was, in Algiers. They were reaching out to get a team together. Nobody knew who that team was. Nobody knew in Texas who the hell was, or who was sponsoring that, or who was asking them to put that team together. I'm not saying it was LBJ, I'm just saying it was machinery, whether it be the Texas Mafia, Texas Klan, whatever you want to call it. So we began to see these things, these reports. So this report did not go to CIA, it went to military intelligence out of the Pentagon. The Pentagon deciphered that report. They're the ones that passed that report back to the CIA. They're the ones that formed what they call an abort team. And I'm going to emphasize that, an abort team. Military intelligence out of the Pentagon set up an abort team to go in and do what? To stop an attempt on the President of the United States. Wow, they say, wow, the military-industrial complex is protecting Kennedy? I don't believe that. CIA passed on was simply organized to act as our logistical support. Well, I mean, I said logistical support. Forgive me if I'm a little nervous because I'm talking way out of school here, way out of school. But, so we went in, who started that, how it happened or whatever, but the CIA provided the private aircraft through Atlantic Richfield with a D-18 Twin Beach aircraft to fly to the Congress Inn in Tampa, Florida, and pick up a man known as the Colonel, Colonel Ralston. That colonel was John Rosselli, my friend. I had flown John Rosselli to Galveston, Thunderbird Inn in Las Vegas, we picked up IDs that were done by the Spider. I'm not gonna name names. You'll find out who the Spider is soon enough. He did all the engraving, he did all the IDs, he did all the paperwork that we had to have for our flight plans, our phony flight plans. He did the IDs with the pictures, and in those days you didn't have things like we have nowadays. So we had all this ID. I worked under over 15 different names. Juan Cabral, funny story behind that. James Ralston, William H. Buck Pearson, on and on and on. In those days, methods and procedures, which you're not supposed to talk about, you use a name for one operation and you retire that name. It's a cutout. Gary knows what I'm talking about. So we went to go into Dallas. We had already had other teams that had been dispatched to Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and Austin to follow the president, and when the timing was right, he was supposed to be hit. For some reason, whoever organized that, and I would not know, it was changed to Dealey Plaza because of the location, because of the bowl, because of the narrowness, and because you could set up triangulation shooters, and therefore you had the light poles to set up the kill zone, and you had a military ambush, a sniper team. You had a spotter and a shooter, 3 of them. North side, south side, railroad tracks. All right, so anyway, we flew the D-18 to Tampa, picked up Rosselli and a few other guys, a couple of Cubans, and that don't mean the Cubans were involved in it. We had a very, very select, different type people from ethnic. We had some Algerians, we had some Cubans, we had some Mexicans. Well, we were not prejudiced. You know, I mean, that's just the way it worked. But each one of these had a very special code, an MOS, if you want to call it, Military Occupational Safety, Service Code. And they were on board. We picked up the DC-3, we flew cross channel right into New Orleans. Some got on, some got off, blah, 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 all that stuff like that. Object was to go into Dallas, get the team in place. We had weather, we were late. We landed at Redbird, barely got on station on time. One point that was a real problem, that our radios did not have the right crystals. You guys old timers know what I'm talking about when you have these type radios. You have to have the right crystals installed in the radio in order to communicate with your crew. So the whole crew has to have the same crystals. Otherwise, it's no good. So our communications were stopped. We were late getting on the station. I went through this many times with the House Select, with Senator, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I went through this many times before the House Select Committee was formed, with Congress Tom Downing, Richard Sprague, and a whole bunch of them, when they were trying to get funding to look into the Kennedy assassination. In 1964, I drew a map for the FBI. I drew a map of the location of the shooters. I made detailed situation on that map. Some years later, I came forward and drew a map for Bernard Fensterwall and Gary Shaw. And that map is in the forensics book of Sherry's book of Enemy of the Truth. And so what brought me, well, I've got to hear myself, but what brought me back in this was the forensics. Because I swore, like other researchers, and I'm not a researcher, I swore I'd never touch this matter again, never. I came out one time to try to help the research community and got a bloody nose, and we'll just leave it at that. I have a BS with a PhD, some said. That's a bullshit with a out higher and deeper. And I wear that with honor. I'm known in some circles as the CIA's Forrest Gump. So I wear that with honor. But back to the Kennedy assassination. I said 5 times I've tried to started a book, many books. Gonna get sensitive, I'm a writer, I'm gonna become a writer. I'm gonna write all this down. So finally I've got to it, times have changed. I am writing a book, it's called That Day. And And some of the questions that you people here have asked me tonight will be in that book in detail. How we were formed, what our mission was, how we failed, what we thought, how it affected us emotionally, and how it affected us for the rest of our lives until the day Sergio died in 2001 with throat cancer. We swore we had honored the oath that we had taken. We'd never talk about it that day. That's the title of the book. We'd never talk about that day. So people believe it, don't believe it. I'm not going to divulge all the details and all the questions that are being asked about that day, because you can read it in the book. If I answer them all ahead of time, why would anybody write the book? Because you researchers are going to copy it all down in your books. That's what happens. So I'm out on a limb on this. I mean, so I'll say this: the reason that us guys, and there was a total at one time of 75 of us that were recruited back when we were very young guys to go into special ops. This was before special ops was ever called special ops. There was no Delta Force. These guys were Rangers that had climbed the cliffs in D-Day. Those are the guys that taught me and other guys what to do. It was an honor to serve under some of these old OSS boys that had came back from Germany that told all those stories of how they worked with the French underground secretly. The Dirty Dozen movie was based upon the cruise. It was formed that we joined on. There was a program, and it's now starting to come out, where young men were picked up off the street and groomed to go into special ops. Groomed for some reason to go in and do the dirty undercover work behind the enemy lines that needed to be done. That's why some served in Ben Phu. Earthquake Magoon was a good example, a pilot that I knew. I was a kid. I was just a kid. I learned how to fly because I always wanted to fly. I want to go bomb the Japs. I ended up bombing a lot of other things. But back to the Kennedy thing, that was my beginning to understand that the United States of America was in a coup d'etat. A coup d'etat was launched that day when I watched that man's head explode. The details of how I got there, details of where I was standing, I have put that down on the record. It was classified, committee sensitive, top secret. I was warned at one time not to talk about it. I'd go to Leavenworth. I was scared. I run, I hid. And then two good researchers finally got a hold of a little bit of something that I knew about, and that was Gary Shaw and Bernard Finsterwald, and that was 1981. At that point in time, I thought, well, it's time to tell this story. It's time to get the truth out there. It's time to get it on record. I go home with a friend of mine. My two dogs are in the house, and my house is burning down. The records that I had in the house were lifted and destroyed. Friends got my dogs out of the house, saved the dogs, but they didn't save the paperwork. Some years later, filed an FOIA request, and the paperwork came back and it had burned edges around it. Mm-hmm. One of the documents was to Congressman Tom Downing, who at that time was trying to raise money for the House Select Committee on the Assassination. And they wanted me to come in and talk to them about the, quote, story I had been telling. Because other documents showed that J. Edgar Hoover had two sets of FBI files. And my file, it went directly to the director of the FBI. I was labeled as a check writer, running all over the country, writing hot checks, and I was not a creditable witness because I had fabricated the JFK story. It took years before the other sets of documents were released. Bernard Finsterwald got 120 pages, Jim Mars got 450 pages, and another researcher got 1,700 and something pages. So then researchers, and I have nothing against researchers, in fact, I hope you guys keep researching, keep digging. A lot of those documents were tampered with and cherry-picked, put out on as the internet come forward, for one sole purpose and sole purpose only, not to just come after me, but to come after every one of our crews that were still alive, including Sergio. Sergio and I were standing there on the south knoll at the steps by the fork tree, as the drawn document shows. Is somebody shooting? so those documents show that we were standing on the south knoll, right by the steps, by the fork tree. Years and years went by. I sat and I walked that. I walked that with Oliver Stone. I walked it with Jim Mars. I walked it with, I walked it with whoever wanted to walk it. It's on YouTube now. We were talking about picket fence. We were talking about little fence. We were talking about the winged out portion on the triple underpass on the south side. We were talking about straight on front shot. He said it's impossible. He was going straight that way. No, it doesn't. Road curves, goes down, raises the ass end of the limo up. Perfect shot from the banister to the front left. Years and years went by before forensics finally started checking it out. And that's what brought me back into this meeting. Truth is truth. It seeks its own level. One thing I learned about all this, you can't mix oil and water. There are some people out here that will not accept truth. And it's like the old guy said, you can't handle the truth. Some of us have spent all of our lives with a theory, trying to prove a theory. And we've become so obsessed. I'm not saying some of them here, I'm saying some I've run into. They can't let go of their theory. They can't listen to me. They have to character assassinate me and others that were there that day. Some of you here know what I'm talking about, that was there that day, that saw what happened, what went on. So you have to overcome that. And then if that doesn't work, then they're going to come out and hit you. And they're going to hit you in an accident, they're going to hit you this and so on like that. So the only thing you can really do, someone like me, is put as much sunshine as you possibly can on the truth. Set the record. That's the reason I decided to come and talk. That's the reason on the spur of the moment that I decided to talk. After hearing some of you fine researchers here, I honor what you've been doing. Some of you are totally wrong. I cannot do everything or confirm everything is written. And I tell everybody that up front. There's no way. If I told you that, then I'd be a fraud, because that's not how it works. That's not how methods and procedures work through the CIA. I don't honor the CIA now because it's so corrupt, so convoluted, so messed up, so filled with political appointees that make strategic decisions that get our young men killed. And I can't condone that. So if there's any way that I can use my past, my background, to convey to good, solid researchers and point the way to go and get the necessary documentation that you people can vet and prove a front left shot, prove that military intelligence was there that day on orders, and the CIA acted as the logistical support for that abort team. Get back to abort. What does abort mean? Abort means simply stop something that you already started. Who started it? Was it LBJ? Who started that team? When military intelligence out of the Pentagon found out about it, what did they do? They quickly, hurriedly launched a team. Launched a team to go in and abort. I said one time, take them out. I didn't mean shoot them. I meant get close to the timing. Take them out. Let that limousine get by. There's a way to figure this. The kill zone was the lights. The lights. The shooter had to be. Our position, our job, our mission was to locate a possible triangulation for a sniper team. A sniper team has 2 people. That means 6 people, minimum. Sniper and his spotter. That's anybody in the military knows exactly what I'm talking about. Sniper and a spotter in 3 strategic positions. The only place of all the places around the country where that could be would be Dealey Plaza. Chicago wouldn't work. High office building. Atlanta wouldn't work. Austin wouldn't work. Now it brings up the question: who transferred that team, and who changed that motorcade route? That was what I call the Texas Klan. Pardon me. So, back up. Wrap it up. I'll wrap it up. I gotta wrap it up. Okay. Anyway, any more you want to know? Buy my book. I'm like everybody else. It's going to come out that day. That day leads into the other book that I started first, called Deep Cover, Shallow Graves. Deep Cover, Shallow Graves is basically a 45-year history of CIA and military ops and those things. But in that book, Deep Cover, Shallow Graves, was 1 chapter, and it was called That Day. As I put this book around for people to read, you know where everybody went?
That day.
They didn't go for the rest of the book, they went for that day. So now they're telling me, okay, expand upon that day. And I just did that here today. So that's where I'm coming from. I appreciate it.